average salary, 15 years of working as an engineer for a company, the average salary is of 3,000 euros. In Germany, or even in some zones of France, in Paris, the first work an engineer has, if it's in a good company, will be paid like 3,000 euros per month. So if we start thinking on why this happens, it's quite easy to explain. There are some countries where studying on the university is exactly the normal thing. So everybody should have a university degree, and those who don't, they are failing on their lives. There are countries where having the university degree is to be a hero, so actually it's much better. This is why, for that many years, countries like Spain have been telling we have a lot of people with university degrees. That's cool. Well, I would not say it's exactly cool. I say, on the contrary, it's one of the worst things that Spain has. There is too many people with university degrees. So the first law of the market, the offer versus the demand, tells that all the people with a degree will have exactly the same salary from the people who has not any kind of university career, just because there's more people with university than without, so we'll pay everyone the same. This makes the only good ideas, the really good engineers, to go outside. And if the same thing happens in Spain, France, in the whole European Union, it's suddenly we have that people, interesting people, is actually living to the United States, where only the people who does not want to live, or the people who feels that cannot live, is staying here. When you create a company from here and you invite someone to come, in iOS there is people working from United States, which is original from United States. And it's interesting, because they were shy to explain us how much money they were willing to have, because I said, oh, we know we are in Spain, like, oh, I am so sorry to tell you that my salary before was, because I know you will never have these kind of salaries in Spain. We said, okay, we are calling you, we know you are from United States, so maybe we can actually talk, but it was quite hard. So finally, with the whole sum up, I would like to explain that after these years of creating iOS, after these years of being more international than Spain, the only thing we have realized that happens when someone starts or wants to start a new entrepreneurship, a new startup, both on the technological or in any other market, is that in Europe, the environment, family, friends, and companies is usually against the start of new ideas. In other countries, I would not say just North America, but also South America, for example, Brazil, those people who are willing to start things are really invited, and they have really ways to start it. I don't know, no sé com vaig a temps. Vale, gràcies. Ok, 20 minuts que queden o que falten? Vale, fantastic. Okay, so I promise not, I can be talking for hours and hours, and actually nobody will be here, and I will just be talking with Sarah. But I think the best thing we can do is just to open a debate. If there is no debate, don't worry, I'll be talking, but I would like to invite you to participate. I have a microphone. I actually can even sit down and wait, but I think it's better if someone breaks the... just to start. Okay, the English boy, I think, has a question. Are you from England? Oh, from Scotland. Okay, so I'll leave you thinking.
So while you were talking, I've been doing a little bit research on WebOS, and my impression is that it's still like Linux kind of geek area, and please don't misunderstand me. Geek in my vocabulary is a compliment.
Sure.
But if it's not a hosted, if there are no hosting services out there, then if people need to put up their own web server, it's still a very
complicated
small segment.
Actually, none of the iOS users has never configured a web server. Actually, the target are those users who have no idea about creating a web server, what Apache PHP is. So actually, our customers in iOS, since I totally agree with you, the web desktop as a concept, it's really cool for the end users, but as a technology, it's really complicated for someone to install a server, configure, etc. So we focused on companies that were offering services to the end customers. For example, if you have a Spanish mobile phone with Orange, you can ask for a virtual desktop. If you are a customer from Swedbank, you can ask for open source, for a web desktop from them, and you will not be caring about if it's open source or closed source. You are just acquiring a new service. So we are usually focusing on going to big companies who are willing to give new services to their users and offer them to create a brand with the iOS technology to go to end customers. The only reason why we are not going directly with a software as a service version of iOS yet is that there are lots of companies who can do it better with the iOS technology. So we are good software creators, probably we are bad software sellers. That's because we have not ever been focusing to that. So I totally agree. It's not the best way to create a technology which is easy to use but hard to install. Nobody will be using it. So our way is to go to those who really know how to install it and offer them to install it for those who don't know how to install it for X euros per month, where X can be 1, 2, 3, or up to 100 for some specific companies that are willing to pay. I think there was another question there.
Thanks very much for a really interesting speech. You were mentioning rich and poor countries in Europe and stuff, so I'm representing JCI Ireland. I don't know if that's any interest.
Thank you.
Yeah. And my question really focuses on the whole idea of what you're talking about, young people looking for, or people with university degrees and looking for jobs and things like that. And it recently was reported in the Irish media that the majority of young Spanish people, given the high levels of unemployment, were particularly interested or wanted a job in the public sector as opposed to anything else. So I don't know if that's correct or not, but this is what was reported in the Irish media. So my question is it more that there needs to be an encouragement at third level, as in universities, for entrepreneurs to develop there, and by that way then maybe you create more people looking at startups and new companies, as opposed to people wanting still the safe and secure job that really isn't going to last very much longer?
Sure. Well, in first place, 1 year ago I would not have been able to understand you, so I'm happy with my English because I understand someone talking at 200 kilometers per hour, so that's cool. So now answering you, one of the worst things of Spain is this one: nobody talks English like you. So even the president cannot even talk a whole sentence of English. That's one of the worst things we have, the president. But the other option is even worse. So we are actually okay, screwed. Answering you, in fact, one of the things I feel is they're happening. It's too easy to have a lifetime public job in Europe versus the super complicated it is to even think about a lifetime job in, for example, the United States or even Brazil. Because here, Spain is the extreme, but I think the whole Europe is on the same direction. In Spain, when you have a job, a public job, with a competition and you win the competition, they are called oposiciones. Nobody can fire you if you don't kill someone or don't appear on your job for 5 years. Probably you will have an expedient, and after 2 years probably you will get your salary cut. But it's really, really normal here. You see reports every day of photos, someone going entering to the job with a card, disappearing, and coming at 8 o'clock in the afternoon or 5 o'clock or 3 o'clock, and checking in, checking out, and leaving. So if a country lets people to have lifetime jobs, those who have part lifetime jobs, so a job for 10 years, are actually thinking, well, what I will be doing next. While the rest of the people who have a lifetime job are thinking, I don't care about anything who is not me, because I know I have this job, so why I will continue training myself, continue receiving training from others, university, etc., if I have the lifetime job. So it's really hard. There are lots of open programs, teaching programs for the public sector jobs here. I have given some open source classes to open innovation programs just for public sector jobs. About 100 people invited to join, probably we were 5 people. And the reason was quite easy. Why would I be going there if nobody will be able to fire me? So I don't care about if I do better or worse my job. Reducing those part of jobs which are lifetime public would be great, but I presume and I think that the best thing we would do is just to eliminate the idea of a lifetime job. I mean, the average number of jobs a person, an entrepreneur has in 2011 now, it's in his life, it's 40. The same number in Spain, the same number of jobs, well, not an entrepreneur, but a young person, the same number of jobs, the average number of jobs 10 years ago was 17. So that's cool, we are going on the cool direction. In Brazil, it's 120 jobs in your life. They are much faster than us, because if I have 100 jobs in my life, probably I will never stop learning, because even if it's a similar job to the last I did, I'll need to do some super mini training to adapt myself to the new job. If we only have 10 jobs or 1 job in our life, I will forget training. If I have 100 jobs, I'll need to keep my brain active. It's just an example. The average language is taught by an American person is 1. The average language is taught by anyone from Europe, except from UK. It's, well, maybe some people do. It's 2 or 3. Usually, I would say it's 2 point something, where point is really up or close to 9, more than close to 1. This is cool. This is much better for us. We should be much more ready and prepared to compete, but we are not. One of the reasons is exactly the one you said. We are really trained to understand that there are only 2 kinds of jobs. The job that you will need to worry about what I will do next, or the job that you will need to worry about anything because you will have everything done. When there is this separation, of course, everybody thinks on going that direction. And that makes us go down. But there is people telling that the United States go to bankruptcy in months. So we should not be caring about anything. Actually, I'm seeing just a light, so I'm not sure if there is anyone. Okay, there is. Hola. Okay. Ah, mira, aquí hay una otra. Please don't try to beat her on the English speech velocity, okay? She is the winner. Okay.
I will speak slowly.
That's great. I'm sorry you lost, but let's continue from that.
I didn't introduce myself earlier. My name is Niklas Regnitzer from Denmark. I really like the fact that you mentioned community, because that's a big part of, in my opinion, open source projects.
Sure.
Reaching a critical base of users. You also mentioned another word, empowering users, which is also, in my opinion, a driving factor. How does your community empower users to be able to work and customize their workspace the way they like it?
Okay, that's the right velocity, okay, people? So, of course, in iOS, for sure, the most important number I have in my head, it's not 71 countries, but 30,000 people in the community, because it's the indicator that we are going good or not. And we always, every day, check if there is more people active or not. For any person to be active in an iOS community, he or she has to be less than 100 days, this is a bit more than 3 months, less than 3 months from his last conference, translation, or 10 commits together to the open source code base. When this surfaces there, you have been not active for more than 3 months, your iOS community member ID moves to not active. So every day we are more or less than yesterday. When there is more than 10 or 12 days in a row where we are decreasing, we are making something wrong. Just an anecdotic thing. One day I was using Twitter. I went to IBM Central, IBM headquarters in Madrid. And the person in the entrance who were receiving people said, "Oh, you are from iOS. I read that IBM will buy iOS." But buy in Spanish can mean to understand they will be buying your services, or they will be buying you as a company, they will be acquiring you. So I put on my Twitter, "Cool, I was just informed IBM will acquire iOS." I thought, in Spanish, I thought, okay, this will never come into. And half an hour later, someone was calling me, "There is a national radio informing that IBM will be acquiring you for $10 million. I said, where the hell appeared the number? So in that moment, the day after that, or something around 3,000 people removed from the iOS community. I don't want to be part of a community of a project that will be acquired by a large company. You are like rubbish people. I have been giving you a part of my time and you are rubbish. This was the summary of the emails we received. You are rubbish, and said, okay, this may be a bit rude, but it's exactly what they're telling. So you have really, when you drive an open source project, to be careful about how do you communicate, because a bad tweet can cost you 10% of your community. I discovered that. From that moment, there is a communication officer who has my password and has the right to remove any tweet I put. That's cool. So in iOS, what we do to empower the community to grow and grow and grow, there are only 3 things. The first one is to be completely transparent on the company plans. This is not the best thing when you have competence, but it's the best thing when you want to maintain your community. So if we want to go in a direction in the company, we'll tell them, okay, we have this money, we have the revenues, we have this profit, and we want to do this. The second thing we do is to dedicate 80% of the profit to open source, 20% of the profit to invest in the own company. There is never profit given to investors or to partners. This is crap when you're a partner, but it's actually the thing we must do. So every year, every January, we distribute the money on the communities, on the community leaders, and we do it on the opposite way of the money per person the country has. So Ivory Coast, one of the poorest countries in the world, receives approximately 10 times the amount that Germany receives for iOS events, because we understand Ivory Coast will be able to make much more than what Germany could do, so we reduce that budget. And finally, the rich countries have a super small budget. But with that budget, for sure, nobody can take profit from the budget, but they are able to make conferences and spread iOS. This small idea, 2 years ago, the average budget for the communities was for 1 year of 500 euros. Now it's around 2,500, so it's not big budgets. But we discovered that when you ask someone to organize a small event, a small something with a small amount of money, in an open source thing, they usually feel, okay, there is a company, there is people having a salary for working on what I work for free. But they trust me to drive my local community. And the third thing we do is to hire people first from the iOS community. So once we have a new job position, we first send it to the whole iOS community. We first use the curriculums received from the community people. And if there is no, if the position is not covered, then we move to the traditional websites about looking for people. Approximately, we are around between 30 and 40 people now. Approximately 25% of the company working in iOS came from the iOS community. So it's great for them and for us. The first day you are working in the company in Barcelona, they need to move. That's it's strange. To create cloud computing, we ask them to move. It's quite strange, but we ask them to move to Barcelona. The first day, they are programming iOS. They do not need to learn anything because they are super cool iOS programmers, compared to a normal engineer that could arrive and start 3 months before he starts to produce. And the interesting thing is that some people coming has not even a university degree, but he knows exactly how to program on iOS. I have shorter answers if you prefer. Like yes.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Pau. It was a great, very great speech. It was like very encouraging. My name is José María Castellano. I am from here. I am from Spain. Okay. And I have 2 questions. I completely agree with your speech. And also, in my case, I was developing some research project in Spain, and any company was interested. Sure. And people from Columbia University invited me to develop there. And after coming back, people in Spain, the companies started to be also interested. Also, the American effect was important for my project, no? Sure. Because I was the same person, it was the same project, but after going there, it was completely different. And also, well, I have 2 questions. The first question is about your project, about EyeOs. This question is, what is the next step? Okay. In your company? Sure. And the second question is about how could we create a friendly entrepreneur environment in Europe and in Spain. How, from the associations or groups, how could we create a more friendly environment for entrepreneurs?
Sure. Well, if you let me, I'll start for the second one. I think there are perfect ways of creating perfect environments to promote entrepreneurship. I mean, I was for 3 months studying at Cambridge University on a center called Center for Entrepreneurial Learning. I just imagine a center like that one in Spain and wherever. It's just a center where you are taught for 2, 3, 4 months for entrepreneurship. It's not the same as driving a company or general managing or an MBA. It's entrepreneurship. So they explain you how your brain will work when it focuses a big challenge or a small challenge about this particular subject, instead of making an MBA, which is also great, but takes you 3 years. So, or 1.5 or whatever, a lot of time. So I think there are hubs of entrepreneurship in Europe. They believe they are worse than the American ones, and that is one of the worst points. I think we are not worse than anyone, especially than Americans. We just have the same ability of having ideas. The only problem we have is that we put less zeros than them to our ideas when we have to evaluate them. But the ideas are good, the same. Your project was good here, was good there, but it was not well received here until it was well received there. So my opinion would be just to create centers for entrepreneurship in the best known universities. You just need to look what happened when the Bologna plan was introduced to Spanish universities, a plan for those who are not from Spain, which, between lots of things, promoted that the last part of the university degree could be done inside the company, so you would actually be touching the real market. This had 2 automatic parts. The first one, companies take profit from this, so they start to explode people, just make me a coffee instead of participating in this research project. So people was angry, and was that angry that we had the biggest strikes and demonstrations in Spain inside universities, something like 2,000 students closing themselves inside a university for 3 months, like protesting, we hate Plan de Bologna. For sure it had really bad points, but the first try that Spain made to get closer to a university who would actually leave people learn about entrepreneurship, about companies, about reality, was absolutely destroyed. I even heard some of my friends who were telling, well, with this change, we'll have no time. We'll actually need to study a lot. Like being on university in Spain, I'll have a lot of free time. With this, I will not have free time for 3 years. Well, this should be university, but it's not like now. So I would choose to study in a university myself if it was 3 years of non-stop. For sure, no. I prefer to do other things. But if I choose to be there, I'll be one of the few that has a perfect university degree. And I forgot the first question, but if you remember it to me.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes, the first question was about your project, was about EyeOs. What is the next steps?
Okay,
I would like that you talk about the future.
Sure. Yeah. Well, the next steps of EyeOs are maintaining the project being the first, the #1 web desktop. It has been easy for some years because there was no competence. It's importantly hard. We measure the success of EyeOs if in 3 years we are in the first 3 web desktops, understanding that some important companies will start creating their web desktops with an incredible budget. So EyeOs wants to be the open source alternative to the best web desktop in the world, and if possible, being itself the best web desktop in the world. For example, there is Mozilla, where there is Internet Explorer, there is OpenOffice, where there is Office, there is Linux, where there is Windows, etc. In our case, it's strange. There is EyeOs, and there comes the closed version. If any day an important multinational, where Google, Microsoft, I don't care, presents a web desktop and half of the world is using that web desktop, EyeOs wants to be the official open source alternative. For now, it's easy because we have the support, the public and official support from different institutions. For example, President of Linux, or even Linus Torvalds, the founder of Linux, are supporting EyeOs, both inside the company. John Maddock is inside the board of people who help EyeOs, and Linus Torvalds just explains on his website why EyeOs should be taken care of. But the objective is to be always the open source alternative to the ones that will be appearing. Hola. Allà hi ha una pregunta.
Excuse me, we are almost out of time, so please, the last one, okay?
But I have two.
Another one.
So the last two with
Oh,
a short
cool.
answer, maybe.
So we destroyed the system. No, I'm sorry. Sarah is very nice.
He was first, sorry. I've seen him before.
Oh, I'm sorry. So we have three, but they were really quick. Okay, we won again.
Good afternoon, and thank you for your very good speech. My name is Benedict, JCI Madrid. A little maybe periphetic question. Funding for smaller freeware and open source programs is a big task and often an enemy in the long-term development. What is your perspective of funding smaller open source and freeware?
Okay, well, it's not actually optimistic. We started the research of funding for an open source project, EyeOs, on 2008. We closed the round on 2011, so we have been 3 years looking for and talking with partners. If we were a normal company who looks for funding before starting the activity, we had to close the company for 10 times because we had no money. But we were working while looking for funding, so we were able to have some revenues that could make the company live. So I think not in Europe, but in all the rest of the world too, funding for open source projects is still 5 times behind funding for any normal or traditional software company. As a quick summary, because the experts on software do still think that open source is just for geeks. It has no impact over the real world. So I'm totally pessimistic on this because it's changing really. We convinced the venture capitals to enter EyeOs when talking about our customers and people using EyeOs. They didn't care at all about open source. It was not the thing. It wasn't the thing that made them to decide. And really quick answering. Cool.
Another one? Who?
A chica esa.
Ana Chacat.
I'm sorry. You will come after her. Okay. You are from England? Scotland. It's not the same. You know, it was a joke. Okay.
Hola, Pau.
Hola.
I'm Miriam. I'm from Sabadell, Catalonia. Thanks for your presentation, for your speech. And my question is, so I'm engineer working in a multinational company. So you have been talking about this profile. And so I'm concerned, so you were talking about a lot of times about the US, the attitude of the people, but I also think that it's not only the attitude of the people, it's also the attitude of the government, okay? So the laws, the facilities to look for investments. So can you tell us a little bit about the problems? Because I'm sure that not all the things have been happy things. You have also faced problems and a lot of difficulties. So can you tell us a little bit about the difficulties about creating your company in Spain?
Well, the problem is that if I start talking about the Spanish government, probably we will be all kicked off the room because we won't have any kind of time. Just a quick example. I think we have a terrible problem with our governments. I explained my opinion, 1% of my opinion, making a small joke yesterday night on a TV show. I have received 94 emails during the night of people saying, what the hell are you doing, talking bad about your government? It's like it's not illegal, I think. Well, at least it's legal since 40 years ago, fortunately. But actually, it's strange why people love one or the other important parties in Spain, because people